Happy Monday, everyone. Whew. I cannot believe I'm trying to make Christmas lists and I'm trying to decide what I want to put on mine because I bought Air Doctors and Nick is not happy with me.
Well, we have too many.
I told him that I bought them and he did not protest. And I put them on like a payment plan. So it's like not even that. It's like less than $100 a month, but they're very large. And he does not like that they are very large and in our living room. And
I can see that.
So now he's just been like making random jokes about air purifiers. Like what I think I mentioned something. I was like, oh, I talked to someone the other day. Like they were having like really bad constipation, like going to the bathroom once a week. And goes, do they have air purifiers? I was like, and like he's made it no less than like 7 jokes about air purifiers in less than a week that we've had them.
Art's laughing behind the TV over there because I can also see Nick doing that. Everything will come down to like everything that we do in our world is very, unique to the individual. And so I'm sure that he would like allergies, skin issues. You can try that. But like, here's the thing. Those air purifiers are A, the best.
They are.
And B, it detoxifies so many things.
Many things.
That really can lead to sickness and a lot of issues. Like I remember growing up in the house that we did, and I still believe to this day, I've never had a mold test done, but there are some of my health issues that stem from being in that environment where my father did not restore the basement properly after multiple floods. Love him to death, but I mean, I remember those musty smells, and it talks about, I was reading up on them, and then I might buy one of yours. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was talking about detoxifying mold and purifying. So
yeah, absolutely. And so we have a big house. Like we have 2 small children. We have a dog. We have like,
are they, so he's basically just saying they're too big and robust.
Well, and also the problem, like I turned one of them on and when it's blue, it like basically says the air is clean per se. So of course it turned the big one on and it's blue. He goes, we don't even need this thing. It says that the air is clean. I'm like, oh my God. So yeah,
man,
funny. It's just, I told him if he's made another comment, I would punch him in the face. I just was getting really upset. I was like, please stop. So
okay, so what did you guys shop for Black Friday? Did you shop anything Black Friday?
Well, we're looking about getting a new TV. He wants a new TV. Our TV in the living room is like kind of being finicky. It's doing like weird things with sound and stuff. And so he's always wanted a new TV, let's be honest.
Any guy does.
So in our Amazon cart right now, there's $3,000 worth of TVs that I think he's been looking at. So I think I don't know. I told him, look, go ahead, like whatever, buy one.
Black Friday is dangerous. And Cyber Monday too, because as I was telling you, I mean, I had $400 worth of stuff and then that turned into like way more things.
I got more Fabula coffee. I bought some more of that because I'm going to use that anyways. And yeah, I didn't really get anything else because he was making me feel really guilty about the Air Doctors. So
I just bought things that I needed. So like some Christmas gifts for Marcus. Yep. I mean, we got his big boy bed that we're going to put him into that full size bed starting the 1st. My walking pad.
Yep.
And, so some things are like necessary in terms of like, so you'll love this. On Saturday, we tried to put up our lights outside because that's what everybody's doing. It was gorgeous on Saturday.
Yeah, Nick did.
So we have, 7 different red, strands here for the bushes, and 2 of them work.
That's the worst. I think all of ours worked this year. Knock on wood.
Well, they're the old school ones. They're not the LED ones. So that's what I need. I put those in the cart, and then I also put some other things in the cart that I am very torn about for my pranks that I want to play and blow up things in the yard. But well, I think it would be hilarious. So
I think it would be too.
Yeah. So anyways, but it's like those things that you weren't planning on spending money on, and then now you're spending money on them, and you're like, do I pull the trigger? Is it really necessary? Because then I'm like, I don't really want the outdoor lights that bad.
I know. When the Air Doctors showed up on our porch, I was like, they're here. And he came and looked at them. He's like, those are huge. I'm not helping you. And so I had to carry them all in.
He really is bad about that.
He was very upset about it. Anyways. Okay, guys. So we want to talk about plateaus in terms of like weight plateaus, health plateaus, maybe things are getting worse, and what to evaluate. Because I think here's the hard thing. a lot of times people are doing the things. You are exercising, you are eating quote unquote healthy, and maybe you are eating healthy. Like I've talked to a lot of people that they are eating healthy and they are exercising, and maybe they're even like eating calorie controlled, pretty low calorie, but things aren't working. And here's what we need to understand. The body develops adaptation to anything you do, good and bad. It's called hormesis. And so when you are trying to get change and you are not seeing change, even if what you're doing is quote unquote good, right, whatever, you sometimes still need to make changes. Yeah. And so we want to talk about how we look at that and how you change your environment, because it's not always just diet. We want to talk about a couple of other things as well.
Yeah. And I think this is a two-way street, right? I was just having a conversation with somebody earlier who has tried so many different things. She said, I have probably had every macro split out there, right? I've tried the low carb diets. I've tried AIP. I've tried paleo. I've tried all of these things and my body's just not budging, and also tried reverse dieting, right? And felt miserable there and then started gaining weight. And so it's a two-way street here. For some people, it might be the right answer for them to reverse diet. For other people, it's not. And we've talked about this before in another episode that we did. When is the right time to reverse diet? And when are times that, for example, I'm thinking of if somebody is having horrible gut dysfunction, pushing more calories, more food on their digestive system probably isn't the right thing to do at this point in time, right? And so the other thing that I think about is with your exercise. Some people, walking is going to be enough for a period of time, while other people who are very active may have to push their intensity higher. They may have to, get a different strength training program in terms of, progressive overload. Like what you've been doing is no longer working because you've adapted. Your body has gotten used to this. So I think just remember that everything we say today is very bio-individual, depending on the person, and also their stress, their sleep, the state of their health, and how long they've been doing these things. So the first piece that we're going to talk about is your diet. And my question first is, where did you, get this diet from, right? Yeah. Is this something that you researched yourself? Is it something that your friend did and so now you're doing it? Is it something that you've just always kind of done for a long time and you eat pretty healthy and you have, maybe this like 80-20 moderation? That's fantastic. But if your goal is to change something, then we have to look at what can change. And I will be the first person to say there's plenty of room for improvement even in my diet. I could do less processed, even like simple meals and things like that, right? I could do more vegetables. I could do more berries. I could do more fiber. I could do more of the good. Most people can. I would say that I probably only know maybe one or two people that don't really have that much room for improvement. And so think here in terms of diversity as well. What's in season? Are you diversifying your intake, including all of your proteins? Or are you constantly eating chicken, tuna, and
turkey?
Yeah. Or eggs, right?
Yeah. Like I think this is one of the biggest things. People eat a lot of the same foods, myself included. This is something I've really intentionally been trying to do better with, is like every week when I meal prep for my lunches, I was meal prepping like the same thing for lunch every week. And so I've been changing the recipe that I make every week. So like last week I did a stir fry. This week I did a ground beef Brussels sprout like Asian dish. I'm trying to constantly vary so that I'm getting different vegetables in, and then dinners are always different. And I'm trying to even diversify dinners even more because we have a lot of staples in the house. Like we have a lot of dinners that we make, steak, asparagus, potatoes type thing. And so I've been trying to diversify what vegetables we're getting and looking at, like Liz was saying, I do a lot of times like gluten-free waffles in the morning for breakfast. So now I'm trying to think, how can I change this and do maybe, berries with that, or somehow put vegetables into my breakfast more. Like even though the gluten-free waffles are not the worst thing in the world, like we need to look at how many of my carbs or starches are coming from vegetables and fruits, and how many are coming from like convenient foods, even if those convenient foods are gluten-free or, light, low processed type foods. Like we still need to look at how we can make those things better. Have you been really low carb for a long time? or really low calorie for a long time. Guess what, guys? You probably need to change things. You probably need to bring carbs back in or bring more calories in some way, shape, or form. Like we can, if you are there, you have probably negatively adapted your metabolism, and in turn, your systems within the body have probably negatively adapted as well, because when you don't get enough calories, guess what? Your body pulls energy away from your digestive system. It puts stress on your body. If that's happening chronically for a long time, now your thyroid's going to get affected. Now you're going to have low cortisol because your cortisol is burned out from being stressed out for so long. And now we end up with more dysfunction down the line in terms of hormones. And so like, it's this cascade effect that we don't consider because we're like, well, I don't eat that much, or I don't eat that many carbs, or I eat healthy. Why isn't anything changing? Why are things getting worse? Because you haven't changed anything.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, but 10 to 20 grams shift here nor there on your macros, if you're somebody who counts calories and does macros, isn't going to make that much of a difference.
No.
Like when we're talking, we're going to, talk about this a little bit more when we get to ways that you can really try to break through, the plateau or really get to that next level where you want to go, is really adjusting things like majorly that maybe you haven't done in the past. And there's some caveats that we'll talk about here. But, if you are somebody who has been chronically dieting for a long period of time, you may fall into the camp of people that need to reverse diet, and you need to restore homeostasis and allow your body to obtain the energy that it needs to function at the capacity that you want it to, right? So if you're somebody who's low calorie and high intensity, you're probably just shooting yourself in the foot, to be honest. Like you will just spin your wheels and spin your wheels and spin your wheels because of this stress that is now compiling from this low calorie intake, a large deficit. Then you're going and doing high intensity training, maybe or maybe not, seeing progress there in terms of like your endurance and improvement. You might not be sleeping as, well as you could be either, because you're waking up in the middle of the night if your blood sugar is all over the place. And so you have this kind of compilation or, stress that's just compiling. And you think that if I eat more, then I will gain weight. But the reality is that to keep up with the demands of your current state or to that next level that you want to get to, you may need to eat more.
Mm-hmm. And when the other piece that Liz has started talking about it around exercise is like, yes, you might need to do things higher intensity. For other people, you might need to chill the F out. Like you might need to start putting yoga in more frequently, maybe cutting exercise down to like 2 to 3 days a week, or completely remove it for a few weeks so that your body can really calm down, especially if you're dealing with a lot of like bloating or puffiness or, inflammation type symptoms, headaches, stuff like that. You might be someone that needs less, like a lot less. That doesn't mean, oh, well, I'm just going to go walk for 2 hours a day instead of doing like a high intensity workout. No, like you might need to chill out and let your immune system calm down so that your body can heal itself. And that's hard. It's really hard. Sometimes you go backwards before you go forwards again. But like if you are someone that has been high intensity training and you're now dealing with symptoms or inflammation, you probably are someone that needs to calm the training down.
Yeah.
And that could be the change with exercise, not, oh, I need to do more. For most people, I would say they probably need to do more. Yeah. But for for those people, who you are, you probably need to calm things down.
Yeah. And I'm going to say, on the flip side of this, if you're somebody who is sedentary and you're wanting to see change, you can do a lot with your diet, depending upon where you're coming from. Like if you are somebody who has had a very high intake for a period of time, right? Or you're eating a lot of processed foods, or you're doing, fast food 4 or 5 times a week, you can change your diet and probably see some change that you want in terms of composition. But if you really want to optimize your health and increase the speed at which maybe you see change, you need to be walking at least. Like maybe you have an injury and so you can't be in the gym, you can't lift heavy, or you don't do, well in terms of higher intensity stuff. That's okay. But at a very minimum, I think people do need to be getting 8 to 10,000 steps a day. I mean, we as a society are just way too sedentary.
Yeah.
And I'm going to just be really blunt here. There's no excuse. If you are not in a boot or in a wheelchair or whatever, like you have the ability to move your 2 feet, you can go for a couple 10-minute walks a day. It's not hard. Like if this is important to you and you want to see change and you are not already hitting that level of steps per day, that would be the place that I would say that you need to start.
Yeah. I have a client even, Jessica, she's amazing. She has a hip condition. She's a little bit older. She can't walk for long distances.
But
she does water aerobics. She all through the summer, she went to her local pool and did water aerobics every day for 45 to 60 minutes. And now in the wintertime, she asked a friend that has a bike in her basement if she could use it. Her friend was like, totally. She goes and uses the bike.
That's amazing.
Like she does not take no for an answer. And she's lost like, I think close to 30 pounds now. And she's feeling so much better. Like she is someone that is an example of could have used it as an excuse. And she did use it as an excuse for a long time. Yeah. She was in a ton of pain. And guess what? Now she can walk a lot longer than she used to be able to because she's improved her health. She's improved her inflammation levels and she feels so much better. Like you can figure it out, guys. There is always a solution. The next thing we need to talk about is stress. Do you purposefully, I actually made a post about this today. Do you purposefully slow down every day in some way, shape, or form? And I don't mean sit in front of the TV and watch Netflix. I mean like intentionally go into a room that's quiet and breathe, or do visualization, or do gratitude journaling, or do meditation of some nature. Some of those are not for everyone, and I can respect that. I will say so in the very beginning, I hated the visualization part of the phase 1. I have started to actually really look forward to it because it forces me to slow down. And I would not normally do that.
Yeah. I like my Muse headband because now it's like a game at the same time, so I can see how many birds I hear. If you guys know what the Muse headband is, it's a very fancy contraption, and it goes off of your brain waves. So it tells me each time if I'm actually getting into that meditative, calm state. So if you hear the birds, it tracks how many you essentially are supposed to hear because it like goes around the back of your.
Interesting.
It has to be connected to your forehead here and then the side. So, anyways, I think that. This is a tough one because some people will take this way too far. And they'll say, well, I'm de-stressing, and they might be de-stressing by, like you mentioned, laying on the couch and watching a show. Like I don't
drinking. Drinking is not de-stressing.
Yeah, unwind. My chocolate at nighttime, my after dinner treat, right? So we're talking what I would say with stress and stress management. Like the way that I personally think about this is what fills my cup up emotionally, but also serves my goals. So if it's a walk in nature, like I love walking in nature. It's just something that when there's fresh air and sunshine, it's even better, but I always feel rejuvenated from that. The deep breathing, that's hard to do, but when you're done, you feel so much more calm, right? We're in the terrible threes right now, and so there's been a lot of separation moments of sit in the timeout chair. We're going to take a reset, right? And I think that can be a really powerful tool in a variety of situations, right? So if you are somebody who's, I hear this a lot from clients, like I'm so busy with work that 10 minutes away from my desk would impact my productivity. And I totally beg to differ, even as, totally beg to differ. There's research behind it. We used to promote this in human resources because it's silly to think that anybody is going to sit behind a desk from 8 to 5 and be productive. Like that's asinine. So every hour, getting up 5-10 minutes, going for a walk, laying on your floor, breathing, doing some stretching, reading, whatever it is to separate and distract yourself from that task, you will come back and be more productive. So I just think it's really important to think about also what's going to fill your cup up at the same time. And the reason I say this is because I think so many people would be more consistent doing something that they love or look forward to from a de-stressing standpoint. Again, if it's healthy and not the drinking or eating the chocolate at nighttime, reading a book, coloring, adult coloring, any of those things.
Absolutely. Because you guys, it takes time. So we know a lot about cortisol. Cortisol is, the stress hormone. It's catabolic in nature. It breaks the body down. DHEA is the anabolic hormone. DHEA cannot be produced unless you are in a parasympathetic state. Sleep is a parasympathetic state. A lot of people don't get enough sleep though. Otherwise, you have to actually intentionally work for more than a few seconds to get into a parasympathetic state. Like you need to be calm and relaxed for at least like 10 minutes or more for your body to be able to transition from that catabolic sympathetic state to that parasympathetic state. And this is something we see a lot of times with testing. Like there's a huge cortisol to DHEA ratio that the person is very highly catabolic, meaning their body is basically breaking itself down. And a lot of times your body will break down muscle to make blood sugar levels adequate. Like your body will break down things you don't want it to break. It's not breaking down fat, guys. It's storing that shit. Like it is breaking down muscle. It is breaking down organs. It is breaking down things that you need to basically keep itself alive. And so we need to get and spend time in this place. It cannot be like, I'm going to take 10 big deep breaths today. You can start with that. but it needs to build into more and more time that you are purposefully putting towards this, because our society today just does not allow for it. It has to be intentional.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, think about what you're doing from sun up to sundown. You're go, go, go. Like I was even telling you this morning, like I was having dreams about GI protocols and like clients, you know, and talking with them this week, because we have some pretty serious protocols that we're going to be walking people through. And I want to help these people, right? So it keeps me up at night sometimes. But all day long, your mind is racing unless you're being intentional by sitting down, chilling, relaxing, distracting your brain in some way, shape, or form. You're never really getting into that parasympathetic state. And we talk about this too in terms of like digestion, right? We know that digestion, the process of breaking down and digesting and absorbing your food, is a parasympathetic state. There is a reason why people who are constantly on the go, eating on the go, just rushed, have more issues than people who are being intentional by slowing down, looking at their food, chewing their food. Like maybe you don't have 10 minutes to get into a parasympathetic state before you start eating, but try to be mindful of this. Try to do what you can do, right? To get into a little bit less, I would say, of a stressful state. And I've said this before, but I think it still rings true. Like there's two things that you do to build the body up. You eat and you sleep, or you rest. Everything else is catabolic. It's breaking the body down. Your exercise, your walking, any of your movement. So just be mindful of that. And then I think the other thing that we want to talk about today too is sleep. Again, this goes kind of hand in hand with stress. Your body is not recovering if you are not sleeping well. And we see it all the time. I mean, hormonal imbalances can drive like insomnia or, you know, interruption in sleep, but blood sugar is huge. A lot of people would benefit, I think, in terms of getting restful, deep sleep if they stop, you know, eating or drinking things that spike blood sugar before bed or place a burden on the body. So here I'm going to lump in toxic substances such as alcohol, sugar, like I would consider those in the same category, right? Some people will use sleep aids, and in some way, shape, or form, for some people that can work for a period of time, but medication also for some individual doesn't help us. You know, in terms of the length of time that we're taking birth control, antidepressants, sleep aids, all of these things, again, it places a burden on the body and the gut.
Yeah.
So making sure that you're doing everything that you can to prioritize your sleep, to support your sleep. That can be everything from your food to your environment to your hydration status, you know, how you're even tracking sleep, I would say. Like, are you getting into bed at the same time or within, let's say, like 30 to 60 minutes and getting a routine down? Or are you just kind of like winging it? Like, I'll just watch this show tonight and then I'll get to bed earlier tomorrow night, right? Like, there's a lot that can be done in terms of sleep hygiene. And I think a lot of people just don't think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say, like, weekends included, at the latest 10 p.m., 10:15 maybe, but most nights it's like 9:30 to 10. And I try to get into bed by 9:30, if not earlier, to where I'm like ready to fall asleep at that time.
Well, when you're used to it, it's hard to stay up later.
Oh, absolutely.
You
And
know?
that's the important, your body needs that routine. It needs that circadian rhythm set. If you do not sleep well, sunlight early in the morning, get sunlight in your eyes early in the morning, get vitamin D exposure, make sure that you are eating things that are good for the gut, because that's where a lot of melatonin is created. You have to have those things in place. If you are inside all day long, figure out how to get some type of good light into your eyes, especially in these dark early mornings in the wintertime, like the happy light's great, things like that, to make sure that you are getting that, you know, stimulation essentially. And then at nighttime, turn lights down low, turn the air down in the house to a cooler temperature. Like, all of those things will help. Get blue blockers on if you're going to watch TV at night or do something on the computer. Like, make sure you're getting all of those things in place, because and if for people that are older, do not take naps after like 1 p.m. That totally screws up your circadian rhythm. So there's a lot of things. You don't fall asleep on the couch at night watching TV. Like, don't let those things happen, because they can disrupt your circadian rhythm. So we wanted to kind of take the diet piece and expand on this a little bit further. And like Liz said, this is so bio-individual. So these are more so, you know, like general thought processes and ideas. Do not take this as a prescription. This is not, you know, what we are telling you to do. This is some things that we recommend to some of our clients and take them through. And so the concept of periodization, we have talked ad nauseum about on previous episodes. If you want to go listen to those, you can. Because your body will adapt over time. Your body will always adapt to anything you're doing. And so giving your body different signals so you don't stall out Everything works until it stops working, basically. And so the concept here is to continue to change things up, because also as human beings, we were not meant to eat the same thing all the time, all day long, till the end of time. If you think about humans in the past, they went through periods of famine. They went through periods of feasting. They had different seasons of food that they could get things. And unfortunately, in today's society, we are now in a place where food is constantly available, and we are surrounded by it in not good ways. Like, there are always tempting foods around. We keep tempting foods in the house, I don't know where the concept, and we have talked about how this can, for some people, be a period of time needed, but like eating 6 to 8 times a day is not great for motility. It's not great for blood sugar. It's like going to bed, eating at 9 p.m. at night and waking up at 5 a.m. and eating right away. Like, you're giving your body no time to digest those things. So we were meant to fast. We were meant to go long periods without food. We were meant to, eat different types of foods at different times of year. And we've fallen completely out of that.
Yeah. And I would take it a level further too, in terms of, women's health. We've talked about this, like the way that your hormones change, your insulin resistance changes as well throughout the month. And so trying to also like seed cycle or eat with your cycle, eat with the moon. If you don't have a cycle, that's another thing that you can do. And I think that's just really important, because so many people just eat. They just kind of like fly by the seat of their pants. Like, we'll have McDonald's for breakfast. I'll figure out lunch when I get to work. And then, we'll order something for takeout when, we get home tonight, instead of taking a step back and saying, what can I do to set myself up for success? How can I diversify my diet? Maybe you have some days that you are lower carb because you're not as active, right? That's one thing. Me personally, like, I don't need a ton of carbs, but the days that I do train intensely, I'm hungry. Like, Thursday, we had a great workout for Thanksgiving. I was hungry, and I was like hungry I wanted protein and I wanted carbs. Whereas other days, I personally prefer a little bit more fat and less carbs. Like, I usually push my carbs to dinner because I want to have fuel for the next morning when I'm going back into the gym. And again, this is different for everybody, but even changing things up maybe day to day in terms of your eating schedule or the amount of macro split that you're doing, for some people for a period of time can be really important. And then the other piece is not trying to diet all the time. When we talk about seasons of fat loss, it really should be short term and maybe done 1 to 3 times a year for a period of 10 to 12 weeks, right? Go back and listen to those podcasts, because I don't want to hammer it home today. Like, we've talked about this so many times, and I think it's really important for you to also pay attention to what makes you feel good. Like, I can go back to my FitnessPal and I can remember, in different periods of time, whether I was eating a maintenance or I was cutting, I have days that I spot track in there, and I'll write little notes like, felt really good, felt really lean this week, And so I think that's also important. Like, just because you're in a season's maintenance doesn't mean that you're just never tracking your food. I think it's always good. Spot check, hold yourself accountable. Am I getting enough protein? How many vegetables and cups of, fruit and vegetables that I have today? And did I weigh out those carbs or that peanut butter, the things that are really, really dense?
Yeah,
because it's easy, in a seasons of maintenance to just kind of let things, BLTs, bites, licks, taste, slip in, or you're not weighing out the peanut butter and you ate half the jar by the end of the week. So.
Absolutely. And I think that, just as over consuming can end in insulin sensitivity issues and insulin resistance and your body storing, low carb and low calorie can do the same thing, because low carb and low calorie diets ultimately give your body the signal to reserve and store. Like, it does a couple things. One, it slows down the fat burning by taking up more water into the fat cell, because the body is thinking, I'm not getting enough calories. I need to reserve calories. I need to store things so that I can survive. That, guess what, produces cellulite, because water in the cells can make cellulite happen a little bit easier. And number 2, your body will start to blunt the insulin receptors to hold on to fat, because insulin is a fat storing hormone. If the body blunts the cell receptors to it, you will hold on to more fat. And that is why low carb diets can drive type 2 diabetes when done for too long. Like, when we put someone on a truly low carb diet, it's usually 6 to 8 weeks. And then you start cycling in high carb days, high carb weeks, resensitize the body to those things. And so we do like weekly or monthly variations of this feast famine situation where, it might look like 5 days of low carb after you've gone through a period of resensitizing the body, getting the body to be in a fat burning mode versus always in a glycogen or carb burning mode. And then maybe there's 1 day of a long fast, like a 16-8 or even a 24-hour fast. If the person is truly in a fat burning state, those actually aren't that hard when you're in a fat burning state. When you're in a carb burning state, you're constantly hungry, which is why you're constantly eating. That's what carbs do. And when you balance them, it's not a big issue. But most people don't balance them very well. Most people eat a carb dominant diet, even if you're not eating high calories. And this is the confusion that I think a lot of people miss, is they're like, I'm only eating 1,300, 1,500 calories, but the majority of your calories are coming from carbs. And so percentage wise, you are overeating carbs. You might not be overeating calories, but that can end up, excuse me, that can end up in this situation where you are now carb dominant. Your body is used to only using carbs, and then you store. Low calorie, low carb, both of those things can happen. And so on these variations, once you get to a place where your body can be in that fat burning mode, yeah, you do a day where there's a refeed, where you're eating 200 plus grams of carbs or protein, because guess what? High protein diets can also cause adaptation. Protein's very important, but guess what? Protein can break down to become glucose in the body. Yep. And so people end up in this place where even high protein, your body will adapt to negatively. So these refeed days are great because then they also stimulate bodybuilders. You refeed days all the time because guess what? They stimulate mTOR. mTOR is a pathway that stimulates IGF-1 that causes cell growth. It has that anabolic effect. So for women, we put that higher carb week prior to your period because your body is burning higher calories at that time. And so and it also helps with conversion of thyroid hormone and estrogen and testosterone. And so like there's so many things that this variation can support. But it's not just those variations. Like go through a period where you eat paleo, go through a period where you eat Mediterranean, go through a period where you do fast, intermittent fast. But that doesn't mean low calorie, guys. This is not, every diet is not meant to be low calorie.
Yeah. And we're not talking about intermittent fasting this way in terms of, hey, I'm just going to skip breakfast and lunch because we're going out to dinner on Saturday night and I want to keep all of my calories. No, seriously. I mean, I think there are some people who might take it that way. I mean, I've talked to many people who I've asked them, like, what does this look like when you are actually eating? And it's not great quality of food. So if you're intermittent fasting, I think there's two pieces to this. One is you may ease your way into it. Like if you're somebody who's waking up at 5 a.m. and you're eating breakfast at 7 and maybe lunch at 12 and then dinner at 6 or 7 at nighttime, and you want to start to close that window to have a longer, fasting window and a shorter eating window, then maybe you start to change up the macronutrient ratios in your meals. As Becca is saying, to her point, like when you're carb, dominant here with your meals, you're going to be hungrier faster. We've talked about this before in terms of blood sugar. When you think about what is going to keep you full and satiated, it's typically your protein and your fat. And so fat is very, very satiating. This is why things like bulletproof coffee work very well for some people. MCT oil and butter. For the period of time that I played around with kind of a low carb fasting diet for a while, I used the bulletproof coffee in the morning because I would sometimes feel like nauseous without eating anything. But I didn't want to have coffee just on an empty stomach. I wanted some good fat in there. And so, and I believe in the bulletproof book, Dave Asprey talks about like, you're not technically breaking your fast if your protein is 10 grams or less. There are people who would argue that, but that is one thing that he promoted in terms of the bulletproof diet. And so he did like allow you to have like, let's say a hard boiled egg that was 7 grams, or you could do like scoop of collagen or something along those lines for some people with their bulletproof coffee. So you may ease your way into this, but when you're doing these like refeed days or you're doing these longer fasting days, please just remember that the quality of your food still matters. We want good energy. We want good nutrients, not depleting your body and then filling it up with a bunch of trans fats, fried foods, junk, meats, things like that. You want good quality food here. And so I think, like Becca's saying, like, experiment. Think about what's something that I haven't done, in a while. If I used to do paleo and I kind of fell off of that, maybe you go back to that and you commit to that for like 4 to 6 weeks. And then you might shift into, a Mediterranean diet, or, hey, I felt better when I had adequate but not high protein intake and I was just balanced across the board. So you have to play around with this. This is very person independent. And I think it also depends upon where you're at in the phase of life, where your digestive system is. We definitely would not be promoting like vegan or vegetarian to somebody who is, dealing with a lot of digestive issues, because sometimes, those carbohydrates, the fibrous foods, they can cause more bloating, worse symptoms, right? And so again, I think this is where it's important to look at the whole picture, see what you can adjust, make what's reasonable doable, for you today or tomorrow. Like start playing around with this, but don't all of a sudden say, hey, I have not complied to anything in 6 months, and I'm just going to go back to the gym 5 days a week and start keto. And oh, by the way, I don't have a gallbladder, so I probably shouldn't be doing keto. Like, there's a lot of things that, we've said on the podcast before, and like we joke about it in some ways. But again, we want this to be sustainable for you, not like a rip the band-aid approach to where a week from now you have the keto flu and you feel horrible, and then you give up on your gym routine and you give up on the compliance of this as, a whole, because you didn't ease your way into it. Yeah. And so I just think it's really important for people to also make those considerations, because depending upon the state of your health, you may or may not need to shift into something like this a little bit slower.
For sure. And I think I want to expand a little bit on fiber, as you mentioned, because that's one of the big things that I think a lot of people don't consider when they shift diets or in general. Fiber is the forgotten macro, like by far. And it can easily be tracked in a MyFitnessPal or something like, a Lose It type app or whatever it is. You should probably be getting in like 30 to 50 grams of fiber a day, and not coming from protein bars, because those usually have a ton of added fiber and like low carb wraps and stuff. And, like chicory root that's added into all of these keto cereals or whatever it is. Like, that's not the fiber you want to be getting a whole lot of. And I think the thing is that when people change diets, fiber tends to be one of the big things that shifts. Like, if you go keto, you lose a lot of carbohydrates, you lose a lot of fiber opportunity. And so people lose that, and now they're constipated, or now they're having loose stools or whatever it is. And vice versa, you go to eating vegan or these super, quote unquote, like healthy diets where you're adding in all of these vegetables. Now you're taking in way more fiber than you were prior. Now you're constipated. Like, you have to be careful with that, and making sure that you are gradually changing that macronutrient of fiber, because that can result in a lot of negative symptoms for people digestively. And fiber is important too. Like, fiber bonds to bad cholesterol and helps it excrete from the body. Fiber bonds to toxins and helps it excrete from the body. Fiber is a huge thing that binds to excess negative estrogen levels. So like the harmful estrogen, and helps us excrete them from the body. It's very important to phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 detoxification of the liver. And so including things like cruciferous vegetables, all of those things are very important in a day. And I think a lot of people don't consider that. People get their carbs from like the gluten-free treats and, like rice, or potatoes have good fiber, but like these things that don't have a lot of fiber in them, bread, maybe some has added fiber in it or whatever, but like you need to be conscious of that, because fiber can solve a lot of problems for people. But if you add it too quick, it can create a lot of problems, and your body has to be in the right state to accept that fiber, like Liz was talking about with gut conditions and stuff. So just something else to consider, how can you improve these things? How can we do things naturally? How can you shift your diet in the best way possible? Because if you are stuck, if you are in this place where you're just not happy with where you're at, stop banging your head into a wall, under eating, low carb, exercising too much, and wondering why it's not working. Like, the bottom line, it's not working. Okay, how can I make shifts? How can I make adjustments? Even if it means slowing down a little bit, even if it means eating more for a period of time. Sometimes that's what people need. And so if you struggle with accepting that or implementing that, hire someone to help you. Hire someone to guide you through that process, because unfortunately, some people don't have the knowledge either. So make sure you're investing in the right thing, because we have lots of people that come to us that have been reverse dieted in the wrong situations and gained weight, have been given the wrong foods when their body doesn't tolerate those foods, have just been guided down a poor path. And I actually heard I heard someone comment on, there was a question around like, I can only afford $100 a month for coaching, or like $200 a month for coaching. And the person that was answering it made a really good statement of, you are paying for the knowledge. You are paying for the experience. You are not paying for the coaching. You are paying for that person being able to guide you down the most efficient and effective path. And when you only commit a certain amount of money that you are willing to spend on your health, you are likely going to end up spending more money than that by far, because you're going to get bad advice. You're going to get bad information that's going to take you further from where you're trying to get to. And that costs in and of itself. So if you are looking for help, I understand that money needs to be a part of that. Like, I get it. I get that sometimes investments are too great. But don't cheapen yourself, because you will cheapen the help that you're getting.
Or the results, or the things that you need, right? Like if you're somebody who says like, hey, I've done it all, I've tried it all, I'm doing a lot of the things right, but I still don't feel good every day, then you might need to invest a little bit, differently, I should say. Maybe you are working with a coach right now, or you have worked with coaches in the past and things just didn't go as well. This is why, honestly, we require the GI map to work with us, because I've said to so many people, we believe in the power of the testing that we do. We want to do this right away so that we can get you feeling better as fast as possible and get to that root cause and not waste time spinning our wheels trying to say, okay, what about this digestive enzyme, or adjusting macros in this way, changing your timing this way. And, for some people, we still have some clients that we've not run GI maps on, but I just personally, I've seen too many things time and time again that align with somebody's symptoms that it's not going to fix itself by eating more pre and probiotic foods or adjusting your macros. Like, there are a lot of things that we can do with food, but sometimes therapeutic supplements temporarily are necessary to help heal and help lessen the burden on the body so that it can, heal and that you can feel better. So again, if it's not us, there are plenty of practitioners out there, but that's what we do. And that's what we're passionate about, because we know how effective these tools are in helping people stop spinning their wheels and stop wasting time searching for, a new macro adjustment or a new calorie intake or a new supplement, thinking that that's going to be the fix. It's a whole body picture. And that's what, we look at. So if you're somebody right now who says, man, this resonated with me so much, I'm a little bit overwhelmed or confused, because we offered a lot in here in terms of adjustments that you can make. But this is how we think. This is how our brains work. Like, there are so many questions to ask. Like, one of the coaches that I'm actually helping recently was like, your questionnaire is so long. And I was like, yeah, because we want to be thorough. I want to look at all of your symptoms. It's 320 questions outside of us doing a lab review, outside of us ordering tests in certain situations for people. So it's really important that, you find the right person that's going to help you solve the problem, and recognize, and we have a podcast coming out about this soon, that it's not always calories in, calories out. There's a lot of other layers that we need to peel back on this onion. So if that's you, you can always, schedule a call, book a link, schedule a call with the link in the show notes, and book in a time with myself or with Becca. We are expanding our team of practitioners in January. So we will have, a lot more availability for people that we can serve across the world, because this is important to us. The work that we do is powerful. It is healing. It is, life-changing in so many ways for people. And if, that's something that you're looking for, feel free to click on the link, and we will see you on a Zoom call soon.